Portals, Tacomas. Portals are so hot right now.
So hot right now.
A lot of people don't understand what they're getting themselves into when they get Portals. If you want to talk about daily driving on Portals, check out the previous video we posted last week. We're gonna have a ton of off-roading content on Portals and Tacomas coming soon. But this video is another FAQ video, but covering one subject, which is how much do Portals cost? Let's get into it. Number one, I'm specifically gonna talk about Werewolf Portals on the Tacomas because that's what I have. That's what we have in stock. They are a little different from the 74 weld Portals. They're both great. 74 weld is making amazing stuff. They are billet Portals with a 22% gear reduction and a 3.8 inch lift, I believe. And Werewolf is a 35% gear reduction and a 6-inch lift about. I'm not here to choose sides on these Portals. They're both awesome. They're both stepping it up and not ignoring the Toyota market. So if you ask me, it's gonna be personal preference on whether or not you want bigger or you want a little bit smaller. It might be a little bit more functional on 74 weld if you're daily driving, but then again, they do completely dominate the race scene with Ultra 4 racing stuff. And hey, look at this. I'm driving around here. Look at this guy. Yo! Doing Portal content. What are you doing? I do not have Portals.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
That was Red. You all know Red if you've been following us. He is the foreman here, my partner in this. We started this business together just over 2 years ago now. We're rocking and rolling. So let's get into it. You don't care about the business side. Let's go. How much does it cost to do Portals on your truck? Number one, you're going to need the Portals themselves. From Werewolf, they're $16,000, but you're going to have to pay import duties and freight as well, which is about $1,500 a set. And then you've got taxes on top of that, and you're going to have to install them. Install on these 12 hours, 1,800 bucks. And one thing about them, this goes for 74 weld as well, you get full float rear axles. So you're taking a lot of stress and strain off of the axle shafts in the rear. You're getting a rear disc brake conversion in the back. Absolutely more stopping power, which you're going to need. We'll talk more about that moving forward here in the video for nice to haves. So your total after your fees, your taxes, shop supply fee, and import duties, installation, and the Portals themselves, about 21,300 bucks. Next thing you're gonna have to get here, wheels and tires. The wheel offset matters. The more positive your wheel offset is, the more narrow your stance is. The thing is, on these Portals, you're getting like 8 inches over stock because of the Portal width that's added to this anyways. And you're gonna wanna protect the Portals themselves in there too. So a highly positive offset, which is traditionally more narrow, but even going super narrow, this is gonna be wider than a stock truck by far. You're gonna want at least a positive 25 offset. Werewolf actually recommends a positive 60. Very hard to find in a 17-inch wheel. They do sell these Werewolf Chimera wheels that are killer. They also come with CTIS. We'll get into that later too. Central air is amazing. It's something Unimogs have with Portals. Basically, you can air up and air down on the fly while you're driving. Really cool. But anyways, you're gonna want to get at least a 37-inch tire. I like the Falcon Wild Peak RTs. It still has a lot of characteristics of a mud terrain tire for off-roading, but some characteristics for an all-terrain tire too. Really aggressive looking. Falcon makes my favorite tires. You can pretty much count on 37s or higher being at least $450 a tire. We're gonna price this out for $5 because Ty has a spare on this truck here, and this is what we're basing his on. We're gonna say that wheels are somewhere around 300 bucks a wheel. We're gonna charge you about 180 bucks a mountain balance big tires, and out the door with taxes, you're looking at about $4,400 to get some big wheels and tires. What? We're using really modest pricing for these wheels and tires because if you don't want to break the bank on everything else, you don't have to go beadlocks if you don't want to. If you're going to daily this thing, you may not want to at all. That puts us at like 25 grand already. We're at wheels, tires, and the Portals. Steering. You need to get a new steering rack. You're not going to be pushing around, especially 40s like I am. On a stock Tacoma rack, you're going to break your tie rods at least. The steering rack itself is going to be shot in no time if you're out wheeling, and I wouldn't even want a daily drive at all on a stock rack with 37s. You're going to want to get either the Tundra rack or a Land Cruiser 200 series rack. There's a few different ways we can go. I personally did an LC 200 rack in my truck, and we got some custom tie rods. We did our own build on these. The reason I could do it without bump steer is because my truck is sitting with the tie rods level at ride height. I'm not getting bump steer. Oftentimes when you lift a truck and your factory geometry is off a little bit, if you are getting bump steer when you're barely turning, it might have something to do with that. These racks are bigger, so the companies that are actually selling you off-the-shelf steering racks that just work straight away with no conversion, they're actually machining down the inner tie rods. That's why they're a lot of money. In this case, without you having to go through a whole bunch of hoops to do this, we're going to price out the Solo Motorsports steering rack. Steering rack itself is going to be $1,600, and if you get the steering rack, you're going to have to get some outers. I'm going to recommend that you get the Solo double shear outers, which are $1,400, and we're going to install this for about $1,300 out the door. Now, when you're talking about steering too, scrub radius is going to be different because you're wider. If you're doing big tires, even 37s, you're going to probably need to do a cab mount relocate on this truck. We recommend the DRT Fab cab mount relocate. It's about $250 for the parts, about $900 for the fab work. And then fender trim. You're going to want to do a fender trim on this. Basically, we just cut your wheel wells out quite a bit, and we usually charge about $900 to do all 4 fenders. It's a lot more aggressive looking, but really it's all about clearance, utilizing all of your up travel. Oftentimes we're also going to do a firewall tub where we literally cut out your firewall and we TIG weld in our own firewall. Oftentimes we're scooting these firewalls back a good 3 inches from where they're located in the factory position. All of those things. So we've got your steering rack, we have your relocate, fender trim, a tub, putting your rack in, out the door with tax and everything. You're at about 10 grand for those items. As it relates to steering and big wheels and tires, you don't want to have to get alignments all the time. You are going to really want to do a KPO alignment cam and cam tab upgrade kit. This basically locks in your cam bolts, and your cam tabs are now like gusseted in there. What this means is that your cams are going to be locked in place. So you're not just going to bump into something or hit a curb, whatever, hit a pothole in these Colorado roads that are garbage, and your alignment's not going to be thrown out of place nearly as easily. This kit with fabrication work and an alignment thrown on top of that, you're at about $1,300 out the door, installed with parts and everything. It's a must. You have to do this. Now let's get into the nice to haves. I'm gonna start with like my favorite thing, because I had portals on my truck without this for a while. I found myself grabbing my steering wheel and pulling myself up into the truck, yanking on the steering wheel because it's so high up in the air. You're gonna want to get a grab handle on your A-pillar. This is a lot less expensive than you might think. This comes from a company called KTJO, and it's only $165. It's worth every single penny. It's going to cost you $13 to ship. We charge an hour to install it. The only tricky part is that there is a side airbag in this on the A-pillar, but they put these handles on the passenger sides of Tacomas, but they don't do it on the driver's side. I would have had this stock and thought it was super helpful. It's a nice to have, but to me, like, I have to have it. My truck's too tall. I'm not 6'2".
He's small, but he's got big dreams.
Another thing on the nice to haves list for me is going to be a Procharger Supercharger. I want more power out of these trucks. These portals help quite a bit with the torque. They do compensate for bigger tire sizes really well with that gear reduction, but you know, Toyotas lack power, especially higher in the power band. The portals gears, they usually take care of the torque problem off the line. I want more power on the top end too, so Procharger is a nice to have. If you're gonna spend this amount of money on your truck, do it. 10,000 bucks installed, and you could go with Magnuson. It's about 10,000 bucks installed too. I like how Procharger sounds. I like where it responds, but Magnuson's fantastic as well, about the same price. Another nice to have is gonna be suspension. Upgrading your suspension. You have a lot of unsprung weight added to your truck when you're running portals. Getting custom valving done, getting custom tuning done would be great, but just upgrading your shocks is gonna be a really good idea here. The sky's the limit on that. Obviously, you can get into a really nice kit for, you know, installed out the door around 5,000 bucks. New upper control arms. I'm going to throw on another nice to have here, which is a double shear kit for your upper control arms. I have the Camberg slapper kit on my truck. The double shear uppers, it's going to help a lot with adding strength and peace of mind when you're on the trails that you're not going to bend anything. We've seen upper control arms go and these bolts bend. It's a great idea to go ahead and add double shear upper control arm kit. The big one here for nice to haves is going to be CTIS. As I mentioned earlier, central air is amazing. These old Hummers and Unimogs, a lot of them have central air. They're really expensive. If you want CTIS compatible wheels, you're spending in the neighborhood of $5,000 on parts. The air systems itself are about $2,000, and you're going to be running an install cost somewhere around 6 hours to do it. What's cool about these is you can air up and air down on the fly. I don't have it yet. I plan on doing it. We know people with them. Airing up and airing down is one of the kind of biggest pain points and bottlenecks in off-roading. It's just never fun. I'm using the Morphlate stuff right now, which is fantastic. Their Pro compressor that you set and forget's awesome. The quad hose is awesome, but I'll tell you what, if I could push a button in my dashboard and I could air up and air down, either going to the trail or leaving the trail without even stopping, man, I don't know if it's worth 10 grand, but it is cool, and getting those really positive offset wheels would help functionally too. So that is a nice to have. If you have the money, pull the trigger, do it. Hey, real quick, I have to throw in another nice to have item here that kind of borders on a must have, which is upgrading your brakes. I would strongly recommend going with the 6-piston big brake kit from Powerbrakes if you're going to do Portals and 37s. I've driven Tacomas on Portals with and without Powerbrakes, and the Powerbrakes are crazy. We have a lot of content on our channel about Powerbrakes. I mention them all the time because as you're building your truck, you should do that. You're going to spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000 for the 6-piston big brake kit, and the D-line kit you might want to consider too. It's a huge upgrade over stock, and you're less than half that for the D-line kit. I could go on and on, but I want to give you one final number. This is like all of the must-haves. Realistically speaking, you are going to spend about $37,000. So a lot of people say, yeah, Portals are 20 grand, right? Well, if you're going to go Portals, you're probably going to look at spending $37,000. Some of you might have a lot of this done already, which is great. You're going to save the money you already spent on future upgrades. But if you want to turn your truck into the ultimate off-road machine with Portals and get a ton of ground clearance, this is killer. A stock Tacoma has a ground clearance of 9 inches. This Tacoma that we built for Ty has a ground clearance of almost 19 inches. That's wild. We're more than doubling your ground clearance. That's going to be the biggest benefit of going to Portals. If you want to get Portals, you want a formal quote sent to you, hit us up, info@mountainyotas.com, or on Instagram @mtnyotas. If you like this video and thought it was informative, we're going to be dropping a whole bunch more. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other stuff. Check out that daily driving video on Portals that we just did. And thanks for tuning in. Peace.